Chris and Chris Talk Movies.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Chris Ferry, and of course, this is my co-host.
My name is Chris Huddleston.
And today, we are split in terms of how excited we are to be discussing the brand new made-for-Netflix movie, Gray Man.
I don't know if we're split on
Or is it The Gray Man?
It is The Gray Man, yeah.
Yeah. The Gray Man. Do you have a synopsis for us, Monsieur Huddleston?
I do. This is directed by the Russo brothers, Anthony Russo, Joe Russo. And it stars Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, DeArmas, Billy Bob Thornton, some other people. And it is the synopsis is, when the CIA's top asset, his identity known to no one, uncovers agency secrets, he triggers a global hunt by assassins set loose by his ex-colleague. And this is a Netflix movie. I don't know if we said that or not.
Brand new. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. We're going to talk about it and what we thought about it and what happens in it. And this movie is brand spanking new on Netflix for those of you who subscribe. So if you don't want us to ruin it for you, then don't listen. You have been warned.
It's very ominous.
So what'd you think?
All right. So this was very okay. I'll start with this. Netflix doesn't do a lot of great movies. I don't know if I'm out on a limb there saying it's like, you know, I haven't watched every Netflix movie, but it's, you know, I have a little difficulty coming up with, wow, there was an amazing Netflix movie that rivals just other, you know, theatrical releases or whatever. But so I wouldn't have had particularly high expectations for this, but this seemed to have gotten pretty good buzz, and it's a good cast. I mean, Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, DeArmas, I would say are among my favorite people working, and Billy Bob Thornton. I was like, oh, great. Billy, I haven't seen Billy Bob.
Three. Sure.
On the other hand,
well,
maybe
can I add something
to
that thought? So my experience, and again, I haven't watched all of the Netflix original content either, but my experience with it is that they look like they have spent money on it. And I would say this about a lot of not with HBO per se, but with a lot of the original content on, say, Prime and Prime in addition to Netflix. It can feel like it was formulaic, like it was the concept of, hey, we're going to do a movie X came from, our data is showing that people want to see a film like, and then the films that they make with A-list actors and slick sets and shiny special effects, etc., feel like they were written by an algorithm that is trying to serve up like everything a certain demographic of people wanted to see and cover as many bases as possible. And rather than saying, I mean, this is an extreme, but rather than saying like, oh, I'm going to create this piece of art, you know, I want to do, here's a more reasonable example. Ocean's 11. Mm-hmm. Have I angered the gods? Did you hear that? There's a loud thunderstorm. Yes.
Netflix or Jeff Bezos with Amazon, they probably own the weather now at this point. So they're probably
shalt not bad mouth blaspheme.
They listened in on our conversation, and now they're going to try to wreck our podcast.
It's just too hot for me not to have the window open, so that's why you're hearing my wild sound, and it is wild, folks. So what I'm saying is they feel a little manufactured. And maybe I'm imagining it, but this is a good example of it. Well, just to finish the thought, Ocean's 11, whether or not you liked the film, that was a formulaic film that felt like Soderbergh and a bunch of people that had Brad Pitt and George Clooney and people that had a good time hanging out together wanted to make a fun rollick of a movie. And so whether or not you think it was good or bad or even particularly fun, it felt like an undertaking. Sure, it wanted to make money and sure, etc. But it was a project initiated in the conventional way by somebody who really wanted to make this thing successful kind of on its own merits. And a lot of this streamer original stuff lacks that a little bit. I think I see in the performances of the actors frequently. I'm not going to say any of them weren't doing their job as professional actors, but there's a kind of a phoning it in. You know what I mean? Like the scripts tend to be thinner. And so there's just it's not Shakespeare, and they all are just kind of showing up and firing their guns and dropping their snappy one-liners. And it all feels fairly surface. Rather than saying Netflix doesn't make a ton of great movies, I just wanted to opine for a while there about, like, I think what makes them sort of not great in my mind is that they feel kind of like commercial fodder to fill out, you know, like, oh, if we spend our money on this, then we don't have to buy the rights to other movies from other people, and we'll just give the people what they want to see, which is feels a little more vapid when I watch it, and a little,
sure,
meh, you know.
Yeah,
they're not all terrible. It's just
no.
I haven't seen one that really sparkles yet.
And that was how I felt about this. To me, you hit the nail on the head. This just feels like, an algorithm created this. You have all of these good-looking people, and I like to see good-looking people. And I like fun. It's like I like tacos.
You do?
I like tacos. I like fun. But that's a really interesting point that you bring up with Ocean's 11. At least as I remember the first one. Movies can be fun, but also well crafted. Like another example of that, with two of the people from this movie are in Knives Out, a fun movie, but well made. And, obviously it was a crowd pleaser, people loved it and everything. But with this, it looks good. It looks like this could have played theatrically in terms of how it looks. So it doesn't look cheap. It's shot well. They go to all of these exotic locations and everything. So all of that is fine. You have Ryan Gosling doing what he has done in several other movies, Drive, Blade Runner 2049, where he doesn't talk very much. The only difference is with this is he doesn't talk except there's, a joke here and there, or he winks or whatever. And one of my problems with this, which is also one of my problems, I would not say that I am a huge fan of modern action films. Because one of the things that they do that just kind of drives me nuts is the tough guy talk. And in this movie, everybody, man, woman, and child, does the tough guy talk. And it's like a lot of it is just people working in an office in the CIA. Does everybody that works in the CIA or is a spy or whatever just speak in sarcasm and quips all the time? You know what I mean?
It's cliche.
And cliche.
That's what I texted you. It's just like somebody in the writing room was like, all right, nothing stays on the page that isn't a cliche, folks.
Yeah.
That's actually that's that line he says right there. There's a poetry to that. Cut it and, yoink something out of a Bazooka Joe comic and make him snark some cliche instead.
Exactly. And, suspension of disbelief, blah, 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 yada, 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 whatever. That's fine. But occasionally have somebody speak like a human. So that's one of the complaints that I have. The other is,
well, and I'll add why I think that's a problem, because it gets in the way of me caring.
Sure. Yeah.
About the characters. Yeah. When it's two romantic leads, and Anna DeArmas was, we just saw her and Gosling in Blade Runner 2049. And
Right.
we know that those two can have great on-screen chemistry.
She's not even a human in that. She's a computer program.
But in this one, it's just like snarkity snark, snark, snarkity snark, snarkity snark, snark. And where this is their courtship. Like they're just so all of them have such a thick rind of cynicism on them, apparently. And it keeps me away too. So I'm just watching. I think if this movie was a person, it would be really pretty and stupid. You know, it was pretty. Like you could see money on the screen, and the locations were gorgeous, and the lighting. I even think they have a fireworks show right at the beginning that is just spectacular. The color is all saturated, and it looks like it's eye candy for sure.
Sure.
Then I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just keep jumping with negatives.
No, it's fine. Say what you were going to say.
And then so you've got Chris Evans, whom I like also as an actor, and I think he's trying to, carve some career back for himself after Captain America. Mm-hmm. Not that he complains about getting to play Captain America, but I just don't think he wants the rest of his career to be completely eclipsed by that one role over 10 years,
whatever.
But so he has grown a mustache that is not a toothbrush mustache, but it reminded me nothing so much as of Hitler. Like he's
got the Hitler hairdo too.
Yeah, and he's a sociopath.
I guess maybe they were trying to say that he's a white nationalist or something. I don't know, because he just has the white nationalist haircut and mustache.
The first time we see him, he's torturing a guy. He's got electric. They're hooked up to a battery, like a jumper cables attached to the guy's cheeks or his lips. I can't remember which, but and then he's like monologuing with the guy. He's like, pain is something that we learn from. Oh my God. Shut up. Who was this script? So full disclosure, I couldn't even make it through this whole movie. I got to a certain point, but I just texted you and I said, this sucks. It doesn't get any better. And you're like, not really. Yeah. So I bailed out. If that disqualifies me from having an opinion on it,
you're not a true,
then so be it.
Credentialed critic if you didn't watch the whole thing.
I am not getting paid for this episode. I'm not getting paid for any of these episodes.
My other complaint, and this is, maybe unfair to the movie itself. It's a thing that bothers me with the modern version of the genre, is there's a lengthy part where they're on a train. And it goes on for 10 or 15 minutes. Well, first there's all these. So Chris Evans is the bad guy, and he's going after.
He's supposed to kill.
Yeah, because he took
Ryan Gosling.
Because he took like a flash drive or whatever. You've seen this.
They're hitmen. So right from the beginning, the CIA boss, who we instantly dislike. Oh, he's really the villain. Get it? Like, yeah, we couldn't miss it. You keep shoving it down our throats. Like everything this guy says is like, it's just terrible. I don't know if you can still hear the thunder, but yeah. So right off the bat, Ryan Gosling is a hitman. He's been hired to kill a person. Then when he finally corners the guy's like, "Oh, you're Sierra 6. I'm Sierra 4." Right? And he's got the flash drive deal with all of the secret information that proves that the bad boss is bad. So the bad boss now wants to kill Ryan Gosling, who has the flash drive, and sends Chris Evans after him to kill him. And I never really, by the time I quit watching, I guess Ana DeArmas is also a CIA agent, but she's not in the Sierra program, or do we find out later that she's actually one of them?
I don't know. I think she's not, but she helps him out, So, but yeah, so then he's taken the flash drive, which, how many times have you seen this in a movie, and it has secrets on it. And so they've got to get him or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so Chris Evans is overseeing this. They just get all these teams of mercenaries to go after him. he gets arrested and they handcuff him to a bench. The police handcuff him to a bench. He's in Vienna, Austria. They handcuff him to a bench. And there's just all of these teams of guys with machine guns shooting at him. And he's behind the bench and then he gets free. And then he's on a train and Ana de Armas is trying to get him with a car and everything. And it's this lengthy scene of him being a superhero. And that's that's my other pet peeve is I would like to see action movies and superhero movies be separate genres, but they've basically made, they've always been somewhat superheroes to a degree. But the example that I always come back to is Die Hard. You watch Die Hard and it's like, these are things that a person possibly could. Wow.
That was really close.
Mm.
That lightning is like right on top of that thunder. If we get cut off, it's this.
Okay. But Die Hard is, the things that he does in that, it's like, a human could maybe possibly do that. Even like the new James Bond movies. I think they did a pretty good job with them of not having it be like, he flies a plane through a skyscraper or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that stuff where it's just, they're supposed to be a human, but so spoiler alert. So they do all that. And then when they finally have their big showdown, Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans gets some of his fingers cut off. He shoots some kind of explosive thing at him or something and burns a big hole in his back. And he's still running around for like another 20 minutes in the movie or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, these guys are tough, but again, I know you have to suspend your disbelief, but when it's like, the guy, he has one leg now, but he's still fighting. You know what I mean? It's just, okay. If they're a superhero, if they're Wolverine and they can grow back limbs or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. That's a nitpicky thing, but it just bugs me that they're so beyond any level of believability that it just sucks all the fun out of it to me.
I don't think it's nitpicking. I think it's just an elaboration on what I think I said off air, or maybe I said it just now on, I don't know what I said. Style. Mm-hmm. It's all style and no substance, right? So there's a scene where Chris Evans is walking. There's a bunch of bad guys, and he has a gun in each hand. And at one point, he just shoots over his shoulder and shoots a guy off a roof, like a guy that's 200 yards away or wherever. He just bam, doesn't even look around. And you're like, okay, so it's a cartoon, right? I mean, we're not expected. It's not RoboCop where he uses his computer targeting thing to ricochet a shot off of a steel door and hit a guy. Mm-hmm. Which that's a movie about a robot cop, but within the world of that movie, you're like, oh, that's cool. And you go with it. Yeah. And in this one, there's a crowd of people running around, and he somehow knows precisely where all of the 20 bad guys are, and he shoots them sometimes with two guns simultaneously without even looking at them. And you're kind of like, well, how am I expected to believe he's like able to do that? That just doesn't. And you know what? If you can do that, then you win.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, no, Chris Evans can do stuff like that too.
You're Superman, like, basically.
Well, what? Yeah. I'm like, where are the stakes here?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm a negative Nelly on this one.
No. Along those lines, have you ever seen Atomic Blonde with Charlize Theron?
I think I did. Yeah, I think I did.
That was a movie that it's very, very stylish. It takes place in the 80s in Berlin, and you have all the 80s music and there's neon and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and she just gets the crap beat
She
out
gets
of her.
the crap beat out of her.
Right? It's all hand to hand. And then she gets like her eye is almost swollen shut and her lips all, I mean, they really went nuts with the like, okay, you've got this crazy James Bond fight, but in the next scenes, this is what
she's soaking in a bathtub.
Like, yeah.
You know, and she has all these bruises on her and stuff. So I thought that was a good way to handle that. And they didn't, you know, there's crazy fights and she's fighting men that are, you know, 50 pounds more than her and all that kind of stuff. But that was a modern action movie that I could appreciate. You know?
Okay.
So I don't know. And, you know, you have Drive, and Drive is an example of, you know, with Ryan Gosling, that's like an art action movie.
I love that. We talked about that a while ago on this podcast. Yeah.
So like you said, this movie is just super formulaic. It is a, you know, McDonald's Big Mac or something. And I mean, maybe it's not even that, but I watched this with my dad. My mom went out of town for a couple of days. So my dad was, you know, at their house alone. So I went over there and was like, hey, you want to watch a movie? And I thought, this will be something.
What did he think of it?
He thought it was okay, you know.
If you're comparing it to a Big Mac, I'd say it looks like a Big Mac.
I mean,
it looks like, I'm gonna eat that. That looks really good. And then you take a big bite of it and you're like, I don't like this.
It's a Big Mac that they left under
doesn't taste good. Yeah.
It's a Big Mac that they didn't make fresh and they left it under a heat lamp for a while.
Cold 2-day-old Big Mac that you don't realize is cold and 2 days old until you bite into it.
Now this is just very much like you said, they put big stars in this. I'm sure the budget was high.
Had to be.
And you know, it's number
one. Why does
one.
Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans, and why do these people say yes to it if they're not getting paid good money?
Sure. And it was number one. It's the number one thing on Netflix.
They're promoting it hard. Of course they are.
So what do we know? You know, I mean, it's working out great for them. You know,
number one on Netflix this week, according to us.
Yeah. So I don't know. So there's not a whole lot more to say.
This is going to be a short one because I don't like episodes where I go on long negative rants because I don't think it's any fun to listen to. But I really didn't care for this, and I like everyone in it, and I wanted it to be good. I expected it to be like some of the other original stuff, that it might not ever become my favorite movie, but I was hoping it'd be entertaining and a fun ride, and I didn't really find it to be either of those things.
And these are the Russo brothers who did the last two Avengers movies.
Right. You know? It's not like anyone involved in this doesn't know what they're doing. The worst thing to me was the script, which was just two-dimensional dialogue, cliche after cliche. And I thought, you know, even these actors and these directors can't make this sing, or they're not really trying that hard.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's a bit of both.
And, you know, we've talked about this some before, and, you know, I don't know that much about what working in this industry would be like, but it's, you know, in terms of like film lovers, you kind of think, oh wow, these guys should always be passionate and everything, but it's still a job, you know, and even a job that you really like, do you always put in 100% every day? You know,
I think if you're an A-list actor, you'd better.
Sure. Yeah.
No, there's no guarantees. They don't sign a contract with you you're not part of the studio system. So you can make 5. Well, maybe if you made 5, but you could make the number one hit movie in America. And if your next one a stinker, really loses money, I wouldn't go writing any big checks. Like,
no.
It can be over just like that. You don't get a lot of run time in this business here.
And people have talked about, you know, Chris Evans is chewing up the scenery and everything. And, you know, maybe he was having a really great time doing this. So I mean, maybe he
was making choices,
Mm-hmm.
He was making choices, and I think he has been playing Captain America for for a decade, and Captain America. It's not that Captain America isn't a funny character, but Captain America himself is fairly task oriented.
Mm-hmm.
So, the jokes are kind of, he's the straight man of the joke, and doesn't get to really goof off. It's just not what Captain America does as a character. So, and maybe he was probably just taking the opportunity to kind of go big and be silly, and the script is so thin that there's nothing really to hang that on,
And that's
him doing improv on screen.
That's another thing that bothers me with newer films, and that's something that I would really like to talk to a screenwriter sometime.
Yeah.
And if anybody listens to this show and is a screenwriter and would like to come on here and talk to us, that would be really cool. But the with modern blockbuster films, to me, it seems that the writing is the weak link on them, because everything looks great. Like we say, the cinematography is probably as good as it's ever been in the history of film, basically. There's nothing in this where you're just like, oh, wow. With any of the actors where you think like, oh, that was a really bad line reading or something like that. You know what I mean? They're doing a good job acting. Everything looks good. The special effects are good and all of that. But just so often, just dialogue seems to be poor in just almost like across the board in big budget movies, Yeah. So I would like to know why that is, that seems to be what the studios are fine with skimping on, is, that it has to look good and you've got pretty people and they're big actors and all that kind of stuff. And the performances are good enough, but it just dialogue is bad.
Yeah, it's interesting because you can almost imagine the attitude is like, oh, well, we got a script. It reads through okay, it hits all the marks, and then we're paying these actors a lot of money, and they'll make it sound good. And you're like, well, but if you give them really good writing, they'll still make it sound good, and the movie will win an Oscar. Right? If the performer does it, the film will. It's like, I don't know.
And it's not,
the writing seems like that's the cheap part. You don't want to try and make it better. That's the cheapest part of the thing.
You would think so, yeah.
Script, right?
And it's not like you would just say, people don't care about the dialogue because, these movies don't make $1 billion or whatever, but Quentin Tarantino is known for his dialogue. And, he's one of these guys that has managed to have big hit movies that also critics love. Same thing with the Coen brothers. The Coen brothers, fantastic, even if in their movies that maybe are not as great, they always have good dialogue.
Yeah.
And their movies make money and critics love them, so it's not like, I think you could just say, audiences don't care,
Right.
It like music, like people just they just listen to the beat, they don't care what the words are, I don't know. So that just perplexes me in general with, that seems to be where they seem to be comfortable. And again, these movies make a lot of money or they're tops on Netflix or whatever, so they're not listening to me. So,
well, why don't we just make this a short one, and we'll.
Yeah.
So I would not recommend this. I mean, I'm not. If you're like, oh, but I want to see it, and I have Netflix, go ahead. I just didn't. I didn't think it was all that entertaining.
Just don't expect anything that you haven't seen a million times before. If I had seen this in the movie theater, I would have been. I mean, I wouldn't have gone to see this in the movie theater.
But you'd have been disappointed.
But I would have been, I would have gone and was like, that wasn't very good.
I'd have left at half an hour and I would have asked for my money back. I'd have been like, I can't sit through this. And but I've done that maybe 3 times in my life. So
one thing I would say, it's, there's nothing super offensive in this, I guess. It's real violent in terms of just people getting shot and stabbed and everything, but it's not people aren't getting decapitated and stuff.
Yeah.
There's no nudity in it. There's no sex.
I think the violence in Drive is actually more graphic.
Much
violence feels scary, like real violence,
Yeah.
Drive
still kind of
cartoon violence.
Yeah, this is cartoon violence. Like I say, there's not blood. There's no sex in it. There's no there's a little bit of bad language or whatever. But so this is kind of like, a family could watch this if it's like a movie that you want to watch with like your teenage kids or whatever, that's kind of the best recommendation I could give for it. But it's, there are other better choices out there.
Chris Talk Movies at gmail.com. That's our handle. If you disagree, let us know nicely. If you agree, let us know. Like,
The Gray Man is the best movie I've ever seen.
I am the Gray Man.
I wrote The Gray Man, and you are...
You know nothing of my work. Anyway, we're on the socials, YouTube, we're on the podcasts, we're doing it. And thank you for joining us again. For next time, we're going to do the 1995 Sam Raimi Western, The Quick and the Dead. So why don't you take the opportunity to watch that one? And then when we drop that episode, you can enjoy the conversation with us and talk to us. We just won't be able to hear what you're saying.
Right.
I don't know. However you do podcasts. I don't know.
I hope it's not storming again for the next movie.
Yeah. I don't know. It's climate change. I don't know what we're doing here. We need the rain, though. It's been pretty hot and dry, so it's cooling things off. That's nice. As long as lightning doesn't hit my house, I'm okay with it.
All right.
Okay, bud. Anything else to add?
Nah.
All right, then we will talk to you next week, baby. Bye.